This is Felix Polanco, Hospital Responder Supervisor with True to Life. True to Life is an anti-gun violence organization that is part of the New York City Crisis Management System. We take a public health approach into stopping gun violence, where we employ credible messengers from the community to interrupt violence on Staten Island, as many studies have shown that violence spreads like a disease. Our partnership with RUMC allows us to employ credible messengers into the hospital whenever there's a penetrating injury. This is done because we got to show support to the patient and, most importantly, prevent any type of retaliation from leaking outside of the hospital. I believe that this work that we do is so important to the community because there's such a need in the community for many resources. A lot of the violence in the community is based on some type of need. So we at True to Life and at RUMC, we feel like it's important to show support to the patients as well as the perpetrators of violence. So I only think that the way that we're going to get through this is together. So everybody has a part to play with this and to reducing the gun violence on Staten Island. This is Felix. Peace.
Peace, everyone. My name is Mike Perry. I'm the program manager here for True to Life. True to Life is an anti-gun violence initiative full of credible messengers, violence interrupters, hospital responders, and outreach workers. Having an organization such as True to Life partner with RUMC Hospital is extremely important and extremely effective. We've been able to connect culturally to the victims and the doers of violence in a way that promotes healing and rehabilitation. Unfortunately, myself and my staff have experienced these unfortunate situations in our own personal lives, so we know what it's like to need help and want help by people who truly care. We are credible messengers with a message that can save lives.
My name is Malcolm Penn. I'm the program supervisor of SNUG Manus Harbor Anti-Gun Violence Organization Crisis Management System. I'm a violence interrupter hospital responder for True to Life, Staten Island, North Shore, which has the highest rate of gun violence in the borough of Staten Island. My role is to step in and mediate conflicts before they get violent. Sometimes we are successful and sometimes we are not. The hospital component is the core of the work because at that point, someone was hurt. When someone is admitted into the ER, our only goal is to make sure that no one else is hurt. Retaliation is always possible, so I always make an effort to speak to the family and friends and give them positive alternatives instead of being violent. So when you say violence interrupter, that is the term used to interrupt violence. So now we all know with violence, it's a situation where once the violence is at a peak, it's gonna explode and it's gonna turn into action. A violence interrupter is there to interrupt that action, right? Because we know if you don't interrupt it, it's gonna turn out in a worse situation. So our only job is to try to interrupt that violent act and hopefully mediate it. My main job in the community is to interrupt violence. Most of the violence that comes from the community, it stems from other things. We could go from drug abuse, neglected households, single parent households. It ranges from a lot of things. But for the most part, a lot of the people in the community are angry. And this misplaced anger, it just explodes. We're going through a rough time right now. What I've been noticing in the community is that if the violence is not addressed by the community, then it's going to spread like a wildfire, excuse me. In Staten Island, Manus Harbor was one of the most, had one of the highest rates of gun violence in Staten Island. When we came in here with True to Life, with our services of violence intervention, those numbers dropped drastically. We went over 365 days without a shooting in the catchment area, which was a milestone for us. But as you know, with gun violence, it's like the Dow Jones, the stock market, right? It goes up, it goes down. And nobody can really put their finger on the reasons that it's actually happening, but there are ways to help stop it. We look at violence from a public health view, and it is a public health issue. Violence is a disease, so we attack this issue sort of like doctors, like therapists, right? So us being credible messengers, we are individuals that are from the violence. Like me, myself personally, I was raised in the community. I was raised around violence. I understand it. I've afflicted violence upon people once upon a time in my life, and I've had violence afflicted upon me in my life. You know, I come from the old school where they say, yo, if you could pitch, you better know how to catch. So I was out there doing violent things, and I had violent things happen to me. As you can see here, I got cut in my face. I had 32 staples in my face. I could have died. That could have been my neck. 3 inches lower, it could have hit a vital artery. But what I'm saying that to say is that being a survivor of a traumatic, violent situation, that can be used as a plus to help other individuals. The main thing about being in the hospital component, which is a benefit, is that I was a victim of violence, and I also understand the politics behind a lot of violence. So once an individual in the hospital see the scar on my face, they immediately have a connection with me because they know that I identify with pain to some point. And any way you could find a connection to deal with the patient to help give them services is definitely a plus. So what we do is we apply our street smarts mixed with our training, and we just try our best to give the victims and the people of the community the best services possible to be violent-free and to live a more positive life. With my role as being the program supervisor in Manus Harbor, I'm very passionate about it because I came from this neighborhood. Like, when I first moved to Staten Island, this was the neighborhood that I grew up in. I went to school right up in PS 44. And coming back now, being the program supervisor of an anti-gun violence organization that's geared to help the brothers and sisters of the community deal with their violent issues in a more positive way and come up with more positive resolutions is a milestone for me. I come from a family where we have no college graduates before my generation, no real accomplishments, and the systematic failure of my family from generations to generations, it's just some seems like a curse. And then to be in a situation like this where I'm actually doing good, helping my community, it's a beautiful thing. My main goal in the hospital is to stop retaliation, stop other people from getting hurt. The hospital is the place where it goes down at. I've seen individuals get on the phone right there in front of me and order up a hit right in front of me. I've seen individuals leave the hospital at that instant to go try to get a gun to go do something to the individual that actually shot the individual that's in the bed. I've seen it all in that emergency room. And the main thing is to stop further people from getting hurt. Violence perpetuates more violence. A person that gets shot, they have an 8 out of 10 chance of getting shot again, just for getting shot once. They also have a large chance of shooting somebody else. So even the person that got shot, they don't know these odds are against them. They don't know that when they go back outside of this hospital, they can get shot again. There's a large chance they could get shot again and maybe even get killed this time. So I make that connection with the patient. And once I make that connection, then I can offer the patient services. It's a tough situation because we try to stop the violence before it gets to a penetrating wound, right? Because once you're in the hospital, it's pretty serious. So at that point, that's the core of our work because it's so hard. It's like pulling a tooth out with a toothpick, trying to mediate a conflict where somebody was almost killed, or in most cases where individuals are killed, because there's been instances when I've been to the hospital and the patient didn't make it, and I got to go out there and try to mediate the family to not cause violence on someone else, but their family member just died. And you know, I come from the streets where I know the rule is an eye for an eye. And in the times we're living in now, in the place we're in today, that can't be the circumstances. So I'm here to change the narrative and lead by example to the same little kids in this community who saw me out here shooting and doing all the wrong things. Now they see me doing something positive. So if it shows them anything, it shows them that change is possible and anybody can make a comeback. So as a change agent, I'm here to offer my time and my commitment and hopefully change mindsets one day at a time.